So we've seen how the G-Virus affected William Birkin in both the classic Resident Evil 2 and the new Resident Evil 2 remake, as we watch this viral strain mutate the scientist to a complete monstrosity, becoming unrecognizable by the end of the game. But there was so much more to the G-Virus, because its original purpose that I'll be discussing in this video will be covered and see how it affected the Resident Evil world for the future iterations. Anyways, what is up you guys, this is DeVuH, and in this video we'll be discussing what made the G-Virus so powerful, but also talk about its origins, its users, and its different variants, and what legacies that this virus left for the Resident Evil universe. Anyways, before we get started with the video, please feel free to like and subscribe for more Resident Evil content in the future, and also sharing this with a friend and on any other social media outlets out there. Alright, so let's start off with the origins of the strain, which can be rooted back to the discovery of the rare flowers in Africa, known as the Flowers of the Sun, which was hidden in one of the underground ruins of the Indipia tribe, with the flowers containing a double-ended RNA sample that would be the basis of the progenitor virus, which was the foundational strain for all the viruses that we see in the Resident Evil franchise. So with the countless research by Dr. James Marcus, the progenitor virus was implemented with leech DNA, creating the T-Virus, which would later be used on Lisa Trevor, an individual who against her will was experimented on for countless years by Umbrella, eventually losing her sanity and becoming a monster herself. But in doing so with their experiments on her, she actually becomes a key factor that would later propagate the discovery of the G-Virus, because after going through so many experimentations and Umbrella giving her so many experimental viral strains, she somehow ended up housing a mutated version of the progenitor virus within her body, which was discovered when Umbrella tried to inoculate her with the NE-alpha parasite, the same parasite that would be detrimental to the creation of Nemesis from Resident Evil 3. Anyways, as Umbrella inoculated her with the NE-alpha parasite, they had certain expectations for the outcome when doing so, because so far, anyone who was given this strain, they would end up dying very soon after. But in Lisa Trevor's case, she ended up splicing the DNA of the NE-alpha parasite in her body, which caught the eye of William. So his natural curiosity of discovering the truth, he examines the virus within Lisa, where he ends up discovering the early form of the Golgotha virus, a strain unlike the T-Virus, who would cause the ones infected to become necrotic and turn into carnivorous zombies. The G-Virus on the other hand had the opposite effect, where the host infected would have rapid cellular regeneration and would be much more keen in their killing instinct, almost reminding me of cancerous cells, where they keep multiplying over and over and adapting to its environment, making it very difficult to take down. Anyways, as I mentioned earlier, after discovering the G-Virus, William had plans that was similar to Dr. Oswald E. Spencer's vision of eugenics, where William wanted to have humans be infected with the G-Virus and receive the benefits of that strain, in a way wanting to have a superior breed of human species. But the unfortunate events that surrounds William and the G-Virus would catch up to him, because after finishing his research into the strain, Umbrella caught whiff of his betrayal to the company, and William was planning on giving the research and virus to the US government in exchange for asylum. But that would be too late for the doctor, because Umbrella has already sent their USS operatives to retrieve the virus, which subsequently almost caused William to die due to the altercation.
What the fuck were you thinking? Our orders were to bring him in alive!
This would prompt him to use a G-Virus on himself, because like I mentioned earlier, the G-Virus does have the ability of cellular regeneration, so with this mindset, William thought that the virus would save him from the bullet wounds that he just received. Though the premise of his actions were understandable, he would inject himself with a high dose of the virus, turning him into the monstrosity that we see here.
Shoot! Eat this, you freak!
I'm stopping it!
What is this thing?
Trust me. This ends now.
with each stage of William's infection clearly showing that rapid cell division, where he gains extra muscle mass, especially in the areas that he was damaged, with William's first G form having the perfect example of the G virus's regenerative capabilities. Now his right arm surrounded by muscle mass and gains a new mutated G eyeball, enhancing William's field of vision, to his second mutation, where now he starts to form extra limbs in his lower abdominal area, and his body is much more enveloped by the virus's effect. Also during this stage, his original human head is now shifted to the left upper portion of his chest wall area, and now has been replaced by this G mutated head, which seems to be enveloped with muscle all around, but is still eerily human-like, but in a much more grotesque version, which makes me speculate that the reason for this head replacement may be due to the G virus's way of creating a damage-proof head, just in case for any upcoming trauma that this G monster has to face in the future. But the progression of William's mutations would continue on with his third and fourth forms, because with these transformations, William has completely been revamped, has covered with mostly muscle mass and bone structures. Also, his limbs are much more developed at this stage, with each arm having elongated claws, a result from his bony structures adapting to be more animalistic in nature, creating a type of weaponry that could shred any opponent easily. Also, William at this stage has now grown many more G eyeballs throughout his body, further enhancing his ability to cover blind spots, though his constant mutations has caused him to mutate a cluster of eyeballs in his chest area, becoming a weakness of sorts. Anyways, this continuous mutations does have its benefits of making the host much more formidable, and helping it adapt to the damage that it receives from his previous battles. But in William's case, I think the consecutive encounters with our characters like Leon and Claire has dealt him too much damage to his body, causing the G virus to overcompensate and mutate him into something truly monstrous. So when we're talking about the regenerative abilities of the G monster, it's truly outstanding to see it take so much damage, but if left uncontrolled, the end result would be a formless mass and a monster who sports appendages and organs that has no further use, which is evident with William's final mutation, because as we observe closer, we can clearly see the unnecessary body parts as this monster has formed, with the G virus already at an uncontrollable stage that it even spreads its mutation to nearby environments.
Hope you like bullets, because I got a hell of a lot more.
Anyways, even with our observation of William Birkin's progression with the G virus, he wasn't actually the only one who was infected by this viral strain, because there were several others who were infected primarily or secondary through another G monster, with some examples shown with both Ben or Chief Irons from the original Resident Evil 2 and RE2 Remake, where we see them get infected through secondary means when William uses a parasite to invade their body. But in doing so, the G virus has a requirement of having someone who is infected this way to have a similar genetic makeup, because if not, the G parasite will reject its new host and proceed to burst out shortly after, like shown here.
I just can't take the pain!
Get off me! Oh my god!
But if a candidate has a similar genetic makeup to William and is infected by him, then it would help accomplish a way of reproducing another compatible G monster, possibly replicating a similar form like William. So in Sherry Birkin's case, after she was infected by her father, she didn't have the G parasite burst out of her. Instead, she had a slower progression of the infection, with the only notable mutation to her was in the facial area, which can be contributed to her DNA match to William, allowing her to progress slowly compared to both Ben or Chief Irons. But with the aid of Claire Redfield, eventually Sherry was given a vaccine that would help her stop the progression of the G virus, allowing her to retain her regular human form, where in Resident Evil 6, we see her get the benefits of the virus, which is in full display here. In a way, Sherry has become the legacy to what William really wanted out of the G virus, allowing us to have superhuman capabilities that allows us to avoid death if necessary. But unfortunate for his case, that dream was only lived out by his daughter. Anyway, the final person who wholeheartedly infected themselves with the G virus was Dr. Curtis Miller from Resident Evil Degeneration, where instead of slowly mutating like William, we see this instead.
I'll reveal the irrefutable truth in my own personal way.
So let me know in the comment section below why he mutated so rapidly compared to William, because when I first saw this movie, that was always the aspect that I wanted to know. But as the same with William, Curtis would end up into a hulking G monster, being covered with new body tissue, having elongated limbs with claws, and sporting that G mutated eyeball, which he also uses to enhance his field of vision, indicating that these G monsters can use these new eyeballs as a means to detect objects or people. In the end, the G-Virus can give the people an enhanced regenerative abilities if given the right dose, but miscalculating the amount can turn any regular human into a monstrosity like William or Curtis. But the benefits of its powers has been seen with Sherry, so if one wants an ideal eugenic society, then they would need to go into further development to this viral strain. Anyways, what do you guys think of the G-Virus? Do you think it would have been the perfect virus, or do you guys think the constant mutations makes it too dangerous to control? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to hit that notification bell icon so you guys can be alerted when I upload my next video. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is DeVuH signing out.